showcasing local talent, professionals, and everyday people making Salt Lake City what it is today. It's time for another episode of the I Am Salt Lake podcast.
Welcome to episode 102 of the I Am Salt Lake podcast. My name is Chris Hollifield. Thank you so much for downloading this episode, keeping up to date on things going on in and around Salt Lake City, Utah. So thank you for joining me. This episode is sponsored by Urban Lounge, great live concert venue located at 241 South, 500 East in downtown Salt Lake City. Show them some love. Follow them on Twitter at Urban Lounge SLC. That way you guys can find out about all the bands that are going to be playing there in the very near future. This episode, I sat down with local LD Erickson. He is part of the band Odium Totus. He's also been part of many great bands here in Salt Lake City, Utah. We talk about the death metal and the black metal scene, the music scene in general. Had a really great conversation. I was really excited to have him come over to my apartment and share his story with me. So hopefully you guys enjoy it. Without any more chatting on my end, let's jump into that conversation that I had with LD Erickson. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of the I Am Salt Lake podcast. This is actually round two. Round two with LD.
Yep.
And this time we're actually drinking some delicious cutthroat beers. Thank you very much for bringing them over.
No problem.
You didn't have to do that, but it definitely helps.
Sure.
Helps with the recording. So anyways, yeah, I guess, we might as well just kind of, pretend we haven't talked.
That sounds good. Okay.
Why don't you just kind of start at the beginning, kind of introduce yourself and what band you even play in currently. Let's just go down the list of all, current bands, previous bands, and we'll start there.
Sure. Well, this is LD speaking. Local metal musician here in Salt Lake City. I play guitar and sing for a band called Odium Totus and play guitar in a band called Gravecode Nebula. I've also played in the past in Ibex Throne, Iconoclast Contra, Lord Beherit, maybe a bunch of other bands that I can't remember off the top of my head that never lasted beyond the stage of 2 months, so probably not worth mentioning anyways.
And we'll delve into the history kind of that, like, your timeline of bands you've played in.
Right.
But what was your very first instrument? What instrument were you introduced to first, and at what age?
It was guitar. As far as what I owned, I mean, I did want to play drums. As a kid, I did what a lot of kids do is break out mom's pots and pans and cardboard boxes and set up a little bit of a DIY homemade drum kit in the living room or kitchen or whatever. But I realized I didn't have the coordination for that, and then guitar was always appealing. So that's my first real instrument. I mean, that I got serious about was guitar.
And was it an acoustic guitar, electrical guitar?
An electric. The first one that I got was actually a going away gift when I moved from California back to Utah. I was born in Utah, then moved to California, lived there.
And what part of California was
Orange
it again?
County.
Orange County.
Fullerton, just right by Anaheim and Disneyland.
So at what age did you move from California to Utah then?
I was about 10.
So 10 years old.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like a big ordeal. Oh, I'm going to lose all my friends.
Yeah. I mean, it was just, mom and dad taking us kids back to Utah, mainly for my dad's work is why we moved down there in the first place. But, so the guitar, a friend of mine down there, his brother had gotten a new guitar and his old guitar kind of was sitting in the corner. And he knew I was into, wanting to play. So he just kind of went and stole it from his brother and gave it to me as my, the parting of ways of our friendship. And, it was kind of funny. That's how I got it with only 2 strings on it. And I never really played it. But,
so the guitar you were given only had 2 strings even on it.
Yeah. I mean,
when did you get more strings? Or were you plunking around with 2 strings for a while?
I was, yeah. I mean, and honestly, it wasn't anything
like hillbilly music.
Nothing. No, I mean, it probably wasn't even that close. I mean, it was probably more like just kind of figuring it out and getting the fretwork, kind of just strumming noise basically. And I didn't get any strings for that guitar. I don't know what happened to it, honestly. I think I ended up giving it away. And then I got another one.
Did you take lessons?
Yeah, I did.
Right away, or was it a little ways down? A little
ways down the line, around the age of 12, 13, like 7th, 8th grade, around there.
And how long did you take lessons for, probably?
Not long. Like
just learn your basic chords?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I learned how to read a little bit of sheet music as well as the guitar tablature from the teacher at Highland Music down in Sandy.
Did you find that to be helpful?
Yeah, initially,
to
sure.
To learn the basics?
I did, yeah. And it was... like he would basically say, bring in tapes of bands you like, and I'll transcribe them for you into tab or whatever.
And what kind of tapes were you bringing in? Like what were you listening to at that time of your life?
Well, a lot of it was, Metallica, of course, was still a pretty big influencer or whatever, just a band I was into. And of course, some of the alternative music, the grunge stuff, Nirvana, jeez, and
this is going back in the 90s.
Yeah.
The 90s,
a lot of the early
Soundgarden.
Yeah, I liked Soundgarden, and also in the heavy metal world, I was like Metallica, Megadeth, Slayer, so kind of the thrash metal.
So you've always kind of been interested in that metal. Yes. Metal music. Were your parents very supportive of you playing music? Were they into that idea, or were they just like, oh my gosh, what did we get?
They weren't against it. I know that my mom, as it went on, got kind of concerned with some of it, but not to the point where she's like, I don't want you doing this. But she, we had a few arguments, but nothing major.
What were the arguments about?
Just
if you don't mind
about, mostly
like
about
devil music.
Yeah, that kind of stuff, as well as like the lifestyle side of it, the hard partying kind of thing.
Drugs.
Yeah, drugs. Maybe like pot smoking and beer drinking and smoking cigarettes.
Wouldn't want that to happen now.
No. And it's funny, though, because she was absolutely right. It ended up being, like, probably around the time I got serious about playing music. Because before that, I actually played, like, baseball and did a little bit of sports, but I got into guitar and music, and
the sports went out the window.
Indeed. And basically at that point, I was just like, wow, cool. I like this band stuff. I like, this music, and I like smoking cigarettes, and I like smoking pot, and I like drinking too. So it was kind of prophetic on her part but I'm not saying that music will absolutely make people do that. It's just kind of funny.
But there's nothing wrong with doing it either.
No,
I think sometimes people, they're so quick to think, oh, you're drinking a beer, you must be the devil.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, shoot, we're drinking some beers right now,
exactly.
and we're good people. We're not out breaking windows.
Not at all. Not anymore, anyways. But I do have one regret on that. I mean, just kind of a aside to this. I think I was a little bit too young to start smoking cigarettes.
How old were you when you
started? 13.
13.
Yeah.
Like full time? Were you smoking at 13?
Not like pack a day, nothing like that. But I mean, I would go to school and meet up with my friends, and we would go off and slough classes and go have a couple cigarettes. Yeah. And it probably wasn't good, but I did kind of quit a little.
Do you remember your first cigarette?
I do.
Was it just like, I mean, you must have just been knocked on your ass.
Yeah, I definitely did get a little, definitely got the dizziness and all that aspect of it, as well as kind of a stomach ache, but I stuck with the habit, man. I made sure I was going to
Do you remember what was the brand? Were they just Marlboro Reds?
No, it was actually a menthol. I can't recall the brand, but I remember it was a menthol because the minty.
Newport. They were probably
it probably was, yeah. Newport or Cool, or maybe even Marlboro menthol. I don't know. I just remember it menthol because of because the menthol taste is different, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Anyways, don't smoke cigarettes. Quit. If you do smoke, quit. Try to quit, even if you've. I'm not going to do a PSA here. No, it's a bad habit. But,
it is. It's expensive,
and it is expensive.
Holy fudge! Anyway, so what was like? How old were you? The first band you were in?
First band was middle school buddies. That was called Dark Prophet, and that was a very bad name. And it was mainly just friends after school. We didn't have a drummer. It was just me and another guitar player and a bassist. We'd play like Black Sabbath covers and try to write our own songs, but I don't think we were skilled enough at that point. But definitely it gave me the itch to keep playing and
Looking back at that, though, were you guys any good, or was it just utter garbage?
No, it wasn't good. I don't have any like recordings of it to really, but just for my memory's sake, I don't think we were,
but it was
anything to,
but really, it was a stepping stone to get to where you were at today, or to get where you're at today with music.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody's got to start somewhere. Were you just playing like kind of in the garage, or did you play any shows?
We didn't do any shows. We actually played in my bedroom. We had like really small amps. And then I would just, after school, just a couple of us in there, just being noisy as possible. But yeah, we did know a few chords, and by this time I, kind of knew my basic chords. So we could do like Black Sabbath songs, but they're like, without a drummer, it's pretty pointless. But it definitely was that toes in the water, like I was like, okay, cool. I can see if I could push this to the next level, I'd have a blast.
And so when that band kind of dissolved, was there another band lined up? Did you take a few years off of music, or what was the progression there with you with music?
It was pretty sudden in what I consider the first actual band, and that was Lord Beherit. And that was basically, I had a friend I met in middle school. He moved away back home to Reno, and he came back. His name's Anthony, and he's a singer. He also knew some people, and another guitar player named Josh, who we called Rocker, or Little Rocker. He's a short guy. He works over at Broovies. He's a really nice guy. He's one of my best friends, but both of them, of course. But so getting together with them, then we found a bass player who was a family member of Josh, Andrew, and then through friends, we had this other guy who played drums named Dan. And that got more serious, and then that's the band that like started playing shows and things like that. In fact, our first show...
Yeah, where was your first show?
Yeah, it was up in Roy, Utah.
So it wasn't even in Salt Lake?
No, because that kind of music wasn't really happening in Salt Lake back then at all.
And why was that? Why?
I couldn't tell you why. I mean, probably just not.
But in
Roy,
Roy, Utah was having it, but not Salt Lake City.
Yeah, like Ogden and Roy had a lot of thrash and death metal bands, and there were bands in Salt Lake we knew. That's not entirely accurate. There was Minion, which is they kind of took us under their wing, like we were their little brother band or whatever, right? And so Roy, Utah, my 15th birthday. It was great. We played and everyone started circle pitting. And I was like, yeah, this is it, And it was well attended. We were well received and everyone thought it was so great. They're like, these little kids playing death metal. And
was it a house show or was it a bar?
No, it wasn't a bar. It was,
or just like a music venue.
Like a warehouse. Yeah.
There was a lot of those back in the day. You don't really see those unless I'm just completely out of the loop. I remember, living in Utah County, my teen years, and there was a lot of like warehouses that were starting up for places for bands to play. And even in Salt Lake, you don't really see that anymore. I wonder why that is.
Well, I think the main reason why you saw that back then was more of a necessity because
the underground.
Where else could you play? It was like house parties. There was a lot of that. And then these warehouses where, people might be associated with this warehouse because of their work or, any old reason, really. Like maybe they're renting it to do just their band rehearsals in. And then like on the weekends, they throw shows and invite all their buddies. So it's very much that. And then, so I mean, that's going back. It was.
So you're 15 years old, you're playing shows. I mean, the first show you played, do you remember how you felt? You said you obviously, you were into it. I mean, you really kind of, this is where I belong.
I was nervous as all hell, of course. I mean, but it was one of those things like, I had my friends there, my best buds playing music with them. So that you have that support there and you kind of have that helping. And then once you play and you get over that initial nervousness and the shock, and then you see people are into it, and it's, you'll hear musicians say when you perform for people, it's like better than, a lot of things, better than drugs in some instances. It's a high. It's like a cool buzz and it's kind of indescribable, but I'm sure people can
Do you
relate.
still get that? Do you still get that when you play?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't do it if I felt like it was a waste of time or too laborious or whatever. I just wouldn't do it. But I get off on it. I don't even care if there's 5 people there, man. I'll give them a hell of a show.
So that really is true with musicians. You hear that a lot. You're like, okay, I don't care if there's 2 people or 100 people.
Yeah.
I mean, so that is a pretty accurate statement. They're not just saying that to be nice.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, it's,
I mean, of course you want more people to come out to your shows.
Of course. Exactly. But if you're really into what you're doing, you believe what you're doing and what you're playing and, the shared experience with anybody, otherwise, like I said, don't play live shows. And there are people who just do like, one-man band, studio project stuff, and they're not interested in playing live. They don't particularly care that aspect of it.
Do you prefer live over recording?
I would have said maybe 10 years ago, yes, but I actually prefer being in the studio now.
Why is that?
I think I've just done it enough to where I'm pretty comfortable there, and I kind of you get kind of more into the workmanship of crafting a song or putting your music together, and arranging it and, throwing in little ideas that kind of enhance it, and it's a rewarding experience.
How many, between all of the bands you've done, how many times have you been in the recording studio? Like, how many albums have you been part of?
If we're going to talk albums, like full-length albums,
EPs, I guess,
or demos, EPs,
demos, whatever. I mean, how many times have you been?
Like between, not a ton, but between 10 and 20, I'd imagine.
That's a decent amount.
Yeah,
so you're pretty familiar when it comes to the recording studios.
I am now, yeah, and
you are now,
yeah. Starting out though, we did a lot of just our own. A big thing back then was tape trading. Back in the 90s, late 80s to even really up into the late 90s, it was still going on. The underground tape trading network. A lot of the times, people were just like, "Well, we don't have the money to go record in a studio because they can be expensive," or they just want to just make a recording. They just get like their boom boxes or tape recorders and just put it in the middle of the room and jam. And rehearsal demos were huge, and we'd send those around. And so we did a little bit of that, and then we got into 4-tracks, which were utilizing cassette tapes as well. Then you can kind of do the instruments track by track. You have guitar on one, vocals, drums, going from there. So yeah, it's recording now though. I record most of my stuff in the bands I do with Andy Patterson, local guy here.
Would you say he's one of the better recording studios here in Salt Lake, from what I've heard?
I like going there, and he's a good guy, and I have faith in his abilities, and we have a good mental shorthand with each other to where sometimes it's hard for me to describe, like, okay, well, I want it like this. Like, this needs to sound more round, or this needs to sound more purple, but not using those adjectives. I just, those off the top of my head, but he'll get it. Like, he can, okay, yeah, I see what you mean.
Because he's recorded a lot of the Salt Lake City bands. Yeah. Pretty much any band in Salt Lake.
He's a go-to guy for a lot of the metal stuff, and because, he plays in...
He plays in quite a few bands.
Yeah. He's in Sabrosa playing drums right now, kind of doom, sludge, metal. And then, so he's kind of in the metal world playing already, but he also plays, it's like some hard rock and heavy sludge stuff. And so he understands that world, but he can do whatever, So a lot of people, you go to his studio and you see the wall of his CDs of bands he's recorded. And it's like, oh, wow, I didn't realize you did that, or, but it's all these
it's all just
bands,
up there on the wall.
Yeah, it's cool to see. And
then, of course, a few of your CDs are up there.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah. So when did you get introduced to black metal? Excuse me, let's do that again. When did you get introduced to black metal?
Black metal. Probably that was right after Lord Beherit, which was kind of more of a death metal band, which was, your Morbid Angel, your Deicide, your Cannibal Corpse, whatever, all those bands. And a lot of the Swedish bands like Hypocrisy and Entombed and whatnot. But black metal kind of came at the point where I was bored with death metal and thrash, because I didn't really see it as... I'm not discrediting it in any way when I say this. I didn't see it as sincere music, really. I kind of looked at it as... Because that's not... let me go back on that. A lot of people who play death metal, I still like death metal, are very sincere musicians and awesome. I'm talking personally here, though. So for me, I found more, I identified with it more in my personality. And also there didn't seem to be constraints. What I liked about it was, there was things like very classical kind of keyboard-like orchestrations with this really intense music. And, they would have acoustics in it. They would have... it seemed like
in black metal.
Yeah, in black metal.
Versus death metal.
Versus death metal, you're stuck with it's got to be brutal, it's got to be heavy, it's got to be fast. you can't really branch out and do more musical things. So that part of it appealed to me. And then just that it was new and it was different. And there was a lot of crazy stuff in the early to mid 90s happening over in Norway. It was kind of amazing to me, just in the whole aspect of they were kind of practicing what they were preaching as far as being opposed to organized religions and living like a very harsh lifestyle, very cold and stuff like that. And I don't condone like going around murdering your guitar player, but
they were doing that.
They were, yeah. And you're just like just being amazed. It's kind of like people who get off watching horror movies, same type of deal. It was just like, whoa, holy shit, this is way beyond, it was insane. I mean, they were burning churches over there. They were doing all kinds of crazy shit. Of course, they all ended up in prison, but that's the moral of the story, I guess, is you break the law, you go to jail.
At that time, though, I mean, how did you find out even about it? I mean, there really wasn't the internet. Were the music stores in Salt Lake providing, black metal?
Yeah, of course. Kevin at the heavy metal shop.
He had the music going.
There was radio shows on KRCL. One was run by a good friend of ours who actually ended up running a record store called The Abyss as well. But JR the Butcher, and he did a radio show on KRCL, and he was playing a lot of that stuff. He was playing all the extreme metal stuff. It was cool. We could hear it on the radio. Of course, it was like Friday, 1 a.m. to 4 a.m., but we were night people anyways, right? So, like, we didn't care about going to school, Another disclaimer, stay in school, kids. Don't end up like me.
Don't end up you're a pretty successful guy.
I later on
cleaned up your act a little bit.
Yeah, sure. I grew up, I guess, and matured, but in some ways. But so we learned about it by that, and then reading fanzines.
Oh, I remember fanzines.
Yeah,
I dabbled a little bit in those myself.
Yeah, the old going to the whatever Kinko's or equivalent to Kinko's was, and copy and paste, and using typewriters, and reading all these reviews and interviews with all these musicians from all over the world, at places like Japan to Scandinavia, Europe, Australia.
Did you ever do a fanzine yourself?
No, I did. Kind of when the internet started taking off, I started doing more of the online kind of fanzine.
Like a blogger? Sites. Were you a blogger?
No, I don't even think blogging was like as big then as it became. It was more like about the websites basically and chat rooms. So we were all keeping in touch with a lot of people over in Europe via chat. And then, of course, going back to the tape trading network and all that, and meeting other musicians, or meeting by the internet through the chats, meeting other musicians in America doing black metal, which was kind of a new thing at that time for America. And
you were in one of the first black metal bands in Salt Lake.
Yes,
that would be fair to say.
Sure.
Yeah. And what band was that?
That was Ibex Throne, and that was a band that went from 97 to 2007.
So quite a long run there with that band.
Mm-hmm.
What were some of the beginning shows like in Salt Lake? What was a crowd response? I mean, how did Salt Lake City accept you? I mean, were they accepted or accepting of you?
Yeah, I mean, the people who were into it definitely were, and the other bands at the time that were still playing like death metal or hardcore or whatever were. Yeah, we weren't taking that Norwegian attitude of screw everyone else. It's all elitism too seriously. There was a degree of elitism for sure, but we basically. Back then there wasn't places to play, though. We're talking late 90s. I mean, there were bars, but we were all underage. But we did play our first gig at, which is now Bar Deluxe. But back then, I believe it was Ichabod's. And of course, the famous address down there is 666 South State Street.
It amazes me that, that it's always been that address?
For as long as I can remember. It used to be a place called Club 6 back in the day. And a lot of the death metal bands used to play there. And some of the touring bands, the national acts like Morbid Angel would come through town every once in a while. And Cannibal Corpse, Slayer, of course. Every Slayer show is like a big meeting event for everyone.
Well, that's how it was back in the day for any show. I mean, you would go there to hang out with your friends.
Yes.
You met new people. It was like a networking party.
For sure. And a lot of it back then, they were pretty few and far between. So they were really big events when something like that would happen, as well as, we're going back to there still was places that didn't necessarily function as music venues, house parties, going back to warehouses. We did a fest, our first fest. We were trying to bring out of-state bands, but of course it was like the day before everyone calls and cancels, but all the local bands still played. And that was at the Mexican Civic Center, which looks like a church gym. Like you seen a Mormon church gym?
Of course. Come on, we live in Utah here, right? We live in Utah. I've seen plenty of church gyms.
Have you ever seen a Mormon church? Yeah. Come on now. But so it was like that. It was just like a huge echo chamber, but it was so cool. And like everybody that came was way into
quite a bit of people that came out to that.
If we're going to call like 50 people quite a lot of people, then sure. But no, everybody was into it, and it was awesome. And so we kind of started to try to do that fest annually. We did for about 4 years. Yeah. The Nihilistic Death Fest is what it was called. We were all really into nihilism more than anything. We weren't like Satanists or, we were very against organized religion and how it can infringe upon not necessarily against people who follow organized, but the organization, the hierarchy of it, how the power structure of religion, how it do you think we could go off on that, but it's not, I don't want to.
Do you think that had to do at all with being in Utah?
Yes, of course.
I mean, there was definitely that fighting back against the normal of what, especially back then. I mean, it was a different world, even in Salt Lake. I mean, we've progressed a lot here. Yeah.
And I'll say something here for the LDS side of it. No one ever came and like oppressed us, but it's just everywhere. It everywhere you look, it's there. So it's not a matter of like people actually coming up to you and always kind of like Bible thumping you or whatever, or Book of Mormon thumping you. But it's more just you see everything. I mean, this is a religion's headquarters. This town,
this state, yeah.
So, and speaking of that, we brought my friend Neil from New Jersey, who plays in a black metal band, Krieg, and we took him to Temple Square, and I hadn't been there in probably 15, 16 years, and he was just tripped out by it all. He was like, wow. He's like, I had no idea. And he's like, I've never been to a religious capital before. And I was like, wow, you're right. I didn't realize Salt Lake. I mean, I knew, but you didn't know when you have it articulated like that.
That it's a religious capital.
Yeah, like think of like Rome, the Vatican City, or Jerusalem, all these Mecca, Medina. I mean, these are huge focal points of course, the LDS Church isn't on that scale, but it's an American homegrown religion. That's another thing, though. I mean, that's Joseph Smith was like early 1800s, mid 1800s. Yeah. So, I mean, the country wasn't even around that long. Pre-Civil War, anyway.
There really isn't a city. There's other religions that dominate certain areas, like if you go to New York City or something. But as far as a religious, like you said, capital, there really isn't a city like Salt Lake City.
Not in the United States.
That at least that I know of in the United States. Yeah. I mean, that I could even think of.
Not same here.
I mean, granted,
we might be wrong, but
yeah. I mean, we're talking about my email box will flood. You're wrong. You're wrong.
We might, but then again, we're talking about a church that has a worldwide reaching ability, it's not just here, it's all over the country, it's in other countries too. Yeah. But I mean, I'm not going to go on this whole thing in tangent about knocking the LDS Church. I mean,
and they serve a purpose. They've done good to the city.
Yeah.
At the same time.
Sure. And another thing too is some of the people are great people and they don't bring it up, and it's not they're very family oriented. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it per se. It's just
let us drink our beer.
Yes,
right? Just if you leave me alone, I'll leave you alone.
Yeah,
that's what I always say.
Well, isn't that part of their Christianity? Isn't it the do unto others, the golden rule or whatever?
Do unto others as you would have others do to you.
Yeah. So get off my fucking back. That's what that means.
So have you
put it in layman's terms?
Have you gotten to tour at all with any of the bands that you've been in?
Yeah. This band, Odium Totus, did a small tour. We haven't done extensive touring, but we did the West Coast.
And Odium Totus, that's your current band that you're in right now.
Yes. And it's a good thing we got off religion. We were getting too far into that. It's going to be a controversy now. Let's go back to the music. So we did the West Coast, and
when you say West Coast, like what, Seattle down to through California, Tijuana maybe, or no?
We didn't get down to Mexico, no. I don't even think I have a valid passport right now. But
I don't even think you need a passport, though, to get into Tijuana.
Post 9/11, you do.
Do you really?
Canada as well, from what I've heard. I don't know. I haven't been to either of those places.
Now, you were talking, speaking of Canada, weren't you talking about how bands getting into Canada now? Wasn't that with you that you were talking about?
I was telling you about that, yeah. Well, basically...
How did that go again?
What it was is, at the border... I think it has something to do with the customs. And they say, why are you here? Well, I'm here to play a show. And they're charging each musician in the band, right? So guitar player, vocalist, what have you. $450
a person
per gig. And these are all, and it's all small underground venues from what I understand. And like, I think I told you before, I probably don't have all the details right.
Well,
But
I still find it fascinating.
Yeah.
I still find that so fascinating.
It seems kind of strange, yeah. I don't know why they would do that. Maybe they're having a problem with a lot of underground shows. I mean, because they can, get violent and problems, but I have no idea. I'd have to read into it more. But yeah, that's bizarre to me.
Yeah, I know. So have you gotten a chance? You haven't gone into Canada or Mexico?
Not with the bands, no.
What about the East Coast? Have you ventured out that way at all?
Yeah. Ibex Rome played out in the Jersey City, New York area, just basically across the river there from New York City. So we played there 2003. I've played with another band, that's Neil, who I was talking about earlier, who came out here. He does Krieg. That's Krieg, not Creed. They're two different bands. Yeah. It's not Scott Stapp's band. It's Neil Jameson's band. He gets that joke all the time. It's terrible. But if he's listening to that, sorry for bringing it up again. But basically, I'll do session stuff for him because he's just like kind of a one-man thing. But he brings other musicians who also play in other bands, and we all kind of get together, and we're like his backup band. We were actually on a radio thing because he did that tour with us too, the West Coast. It was his tour basically. It was for Krieg, and we just kind of rode along for the ride. But we did a radio thing in LA, and I said he was the black metal Chuck Berry. He just shows up and he's got a band to back him up, It's because that's what Chuck Berry does.
Yeah,
he just flies. He flies with his guitar. He doesn't even check it in like a guitar case. He takes it on, carry on, flies to his gig, and he's still doing that too. That's what's amazing. He's like 80,000 years old.
If you could tour with any band, like what are some bands that you would, or a band you would enjoy touring with? Bigger name bands. Come on, not just to be nice to the local guys.
Sure. Metal bands definitely would be anything with King Diamond for sure. Which he's not like super big, but I mean he's very well known in the metal community. But let's say,
do you like touring? I mean, do you like being out on the road, or do you miss home?
I do. I go through
phases,
ups and downs. It depends on like how hungover I am at the time. Yeah, because when you're really sick, but you learn that though. It's like, well, look, you can't go out partying every night. Like you got to drive. Touring's a lot of waiting. That's what it is, really. It's a lot of driving and waiting and traveling, and you can't really be. Some people can do it. I can't. I'm especially now, my age. I just can't really. Not that I'm way old, but the alcohol really kicks my ass sometimes, and it's hard to get jazz for the next show the next night when you feel like shit. So then you drink more, right? So, I like it though. Yeah, it's meeting all the people and having the experience and seeing new
and the
places.
Fans and the people coming up to you. That's
wonderful.
And do you have any tours planned or not really right now?
Nothing planned with Gravecoat Nebula, which Helen plays in. Helen.
Helen, yeah.
Yeah. We're playing here.
Let's talk about that show. Actually,
let's
go
through the shows.
Esoteric.
Esoteric is a funeral doom metal band from England, and they're playing with a band called Velnius from Colorado. Good friends of ours, and then another band from Sweden called Saturnalia Temple. That's all kind of like really spacey, dark doom metal music, very atmospheric. It's good stuff. It's awesome to see live. And then Helen's band, Moon of Delirium's opening that. They're local.
But you're not in that band.
I'm
right?
not in that band. No. That's our buddy Alex. He also plays in a band called the Obliterate Plague. It's really good.
Yeah.
And they're playing my fest, so that's the 26th is the Esoteric show. The fest is the 27th, 28th, the Fall of Zion Fest is what I call it. And
Well, yeah, what is it? I haven't heard this yet. What is this?
this is a big local, mostly all local metal fest we're doing.
Really?
And it's my band, Odium Totus, plays the first night along with Eagle Twins playing, Death Blow. There is a touring band. I tried to keep it all local, but some bands come to town and
You just have to get them on.
yeah. And Still Bearing Hand is the name of that band. The Obliterate Plague.
And what are the dates of this?
September 27th, 28th down at the Shred Shed. The Esoteric show.
So yeah, catch the Esoteric show on the 26th. Then you got 27th, 28th, and
at Shred Shed, all ages. So,
well, that's great.
and then the next day, so it's 2 days. The first day is just kind of like 6 bands because they'll be later in the evening, for people who are at work during the day. Then Saturday we'll do kind of more of an all day thing, and that's tons of bands from Utah, not just Salt Lake, but like Gravetown, Holdra, going off the top of my head. I know
No.
for people listening,
yeah.
I'm not like missing bands. It's just there's so many off the top of my head.
And I'll try to find a link.
We'll put a link up,
to put with the with the show notes so people. But it's at the Shred Shed.
Yeah, $8 each day.
That's not bad.
No, it's a lot of bang for the buck and a lot of great bands. And the whole idea behind doing this fest was kind of a thank you to fans and bands because we're out there schlepping our stuff around day in, day out. We're out there, playing for touring bands, not getting paid because we realize, hey, you're on tour, you need the gas money. But this is kind of my way of saying like, hey, let's put the focus on these local bands and give them a little bit of a round of applause, I guess, or just to say like, hey, fucking A, man, we got a scene here. Let's have fun.
Dude, Salt Lake City's got it. I mean, what do you think of the local music scene?
I love it.
It's great.
It is. It's and not just metal music. I like all kinds of bands. Dwellers is a great band. They're kind of play like a bluesy hard rock.
No, I love those guys.
They're really good.
I love them.
Joey Toscano is amazing. He's my favorite guitar player in Salt Lake for sure. Hands down.
Do you make it out to many other shows?
I try to. I mean, we're going to talk about the double-edged sword factor of there being a great scene, and so
it's hard to make it out to all of them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And sometimes a band you really want to see might be playing the same night as another band you really want to see. But down like by State Street, like Bar Lux and Burt's and all these great music venues we have downtown, you can kind of do that. Foot traffic. You could go between both shows if you can afford to. I try to do that. I've done that a few times, but I try to make it out to as many shows as I can. Last night, the Pirate Punks did a free show with like Visigoth, who's a local heavy metal band. They're playing the fest as well, and they just got signed to Metal Blade Records. So,
is there a good website for people to refer to find out about the local metal scene at all, like a Salt Lake metal scene or the death metal scene? What would you recommend for them to keep up on everything?
We do have a Facebook group. It's called Salt Lake City Metal Page. I'm one of the admins. There's a few other admins there. And actually, lately, we've had tons of people joining. And
I'll try to get a link for that as well, because
I have to approve the membership.
Yeah.
So, hey, if you're not...
do you have to kick... if
you're not cool enough to hang, you ain't getting in. No.
Do you kick people out at all?
No, I don't. I've never...
For being an asshole or something?
Not at all. The only time I'll kick out or ban anyone is if it's one of those bots coming in and spamming, buy some shoes or sunglasses.
Yeah.
But no, I let everyone in pretty much, and there's a lot of, it gets pretty heated with debates and stuff, but it's good for everyone to kind of come together and be able to. And I'm learning about some new music from it because I'm not really into metal these days. To tell you the truth.
What are you listening to?
I listen to like a lot of Neil Young.
Oh, I love Neil Young.
Neil Young's the shit. Pink Floyd's a huge band for me. The Velvet Underground, Joy Division.
And you're wearing a Stooges shirt there.
I'm wearing, Iggy Pop.
Gotta love the Stooges, man.
Oh, hell yeah. So a lot of the psychedelic as well as the neo psychedelic. I like a band called the Blue Angel Lounge from Germany. They just played with the Brian Jonestown Massacre.
I love that band.
Yeah, I like them. Brian and then the Black Angels. There's a whole scene with that. This revivalist kind of 60s rock thing. Well, I guess there really always has been, but it's really hit it hard. I like that whole scene, which kind of ties into indie rock stuff and. I like, man, I'm all over the place. I mean, if you were to look at my
Your iPhone.
My MP3, iPod, whatever.
Yeah.
It's. I mean, there's metal on there, but there's probably more not metal stuff on there than anything.
So what do you think the biggest downfall with the current way the music industry is as a whole?
As a whole?
Do you think there's, I mean, what do you think's wrong with it? Do you think anything is wrong with it? What would you change?
Biggest thing is oversaturation.
Of music, of bands?
There's, I mean, the internet, right? The internet changed the whole game for everyone who play music. In a lot of good ways for us. We can spread our stuff out way easier now than we could previously, because we had to do the tape trade and then stand in line at the post office. And I'm still standing in line at the post office sending CDs and stuff out. But
like mixed CDs or
no, like
of
our releases. Yeah, people will
yeah.
order stuff. I mean, I got to send it to them somehow. So that will probably never change. But yeah. So oversaturation of just way too many bands. A lot of people who shouldn't be are.
A lot of bands signed that shouldn't be signed. I
don't even think they're signed. They're just putting it out there. Like YouTube, you don't need to be signed to release your music. You can just put it on SoundCloud or...
But at the same effect, though, don't you think that helps bands tour, like a band like yourself, Odium Totus, getting your name out there, saying, okay, we can go on a tour now, and you're going to get more people coming out to your shows because they've had a chance to hear you, come out and check out your music. So it's been helpful at the same time.
Yeah, of course. It's for the promotional capabilities of it, it's huge. It's, but that promotes some laziness too, because the old ways of doing it, the DIY, get your ass beat in the street, hanging up flyers and stuff. Let's get our old bucket of wheat paste and hit up some telephone poles with some, flyers, you know?
You don't see flyering much anymore.
I try to for all the shows I put on, which after this fest, I'm taking a break for a minute.
Putting shows on or a flyer?
Just mainly like kind of organizing everything. It's a lot of work.
Is that pretty exhausting?
It is, yeah. It's stressful. I'm going to work with some other people that put on metal shows here and kind of like say, okay, well, you handle the flyering, you handle this, you handle that. So for all one person, take that on. Yeah, it gets exhausting and stressful. And plus I got bands of my own, you know, and starting a new band and, you know.
What band did you start a new band?
It's just very in the infancy stage. It's like songwriting, but it's more of a rock kind of the stuff I was talking about just a minute ago. And that's with, so far, we got a bass player, Brock, who plays in Chain Whip, which is like a crust grindcore band. Kyle Smith, who plays in a hardcore band called Burn Your World, is playing the other guitar. Then we're working on a drummer. But yeah, we've gotten together a few times. As soon as all this show stuff kind of wraps up, we'll hit it harder. But yeah, Gravecoat Nebula, I'm going back to, like you were saying, do I have any planned tours or out-of-state shows? Gravecoat Nebula is playing the Denver Doom Metal Fest.
When is that? October
11th and 12th. And that's a 2-day thing. And we're just going out for that weekend.
Right on.
And then actually, Odium Totus next year is playing a big black metal fest out in Denver as well. And that's next April. It's actually on my wife's birthday. My wife, Kate, plays guitar in Odium Totus as well.
How's that been for you to have your wife playing your band with you?
It's fucking cool. Yeah. It's like, you know, a lot of the time, girlfriends' wives, you know, can get jealous that their boyfriend, or vice versa, you know, the boyfriends get jealous their girlfriends go out and play in bands or whatever. And this is kind of a way to, you know, it's like I'm sharing this with you.
Yeah, you're spending time with her, playing music with her. And what did you say? What instrument did you say she plays?
She plays guitar.
Yeah.
Yep. And then a good friend I've known for years, one of our earliest supporters of Ibex Rona, Micah, plays bass. And he's like the rock of the band. Like whenever I can't get something done, he always backs me up and helps me out financially mostly. So it's good to have someone that's really solid and dependable like that.
I could imagine.
Yeah. He's a really good friend of mine. Actually, when we played, because Odium Totus just did a thing in LA and Vegas last August. And when we played Las Vegas after the show, him and his girlfriend at the time, Robin, they went and got married that night. So
down in Vegas by Elvis.
Yeah, not by Elvis. We tried to do by Elvis. I got married by Elvis last year. Me and Kate did, yeah. Or Kate and I, sorry, proper grammar here. But yeah, it was a trip. And the only people there was the band. It was cool. Yeah, it was
that's like all you needed, man.
2 a.m, drunk as shit, and hell yeah, Micah getting married. And she comes with us, his wife Robin. She's helps us out with like the merch, and she's our cheerleader.
Yeah.
And then Rick, the drummer, played in bands with me before, and he's a good friend too. And I love this band. It's awesome.
So what do you like about Salt Lake City in general? What do you like about living here? What do you like?
Yeah.
What do you like?
I guess we should talk about Salt Lake. I am Salt Lake, right? Yeah. We've run a gamut of topics here.
Yeah.
Thanks for moderating it back to the good focus there. But yeah, I love living here because clean, nice, safe. Those are the basic. You probably hear that answer a lot.
Well, it's probably the number one answer.
Yes, and I like that we don't have like tons of traffic, and it's not too overpopulated. It's still got kind of a small town vibe to it, which I like. Of course, our wonderful outdoors stuff is just. We're 20 minutes away from all these awesome canyons for hiking, or people who like to do the snow stuff, like the snowboarding, all that. It's cool.
Are you a big snow fan? Are you excited for winter that's creeping up here on us?
I don't bitch about the snow as much as people I know do. I don't really mind it. But see, on my dad's side, I'm Scandinavian, so we got that up in the cold north kind of feel. Canada too, right? Yeah, I don't mind it, but I don't snowboard. I don't ski.
Have you ever been?
No.
Never been? Not even once, huh?
Not once.
That's kind of like me. I've only been snowboarding a handful of times.
Yeah. I don't know. I figure I never say never, right? Maybe I will someday, but I'm more into the camping and the hiking stuff.
Yeah.
And being out when it's warm. If you're going to be outdoors, it's preferable to have the weather to be nicer. But yeah, I don't mind the snow.
Would you change anything about Salt Lake? Is there anything you would like to see different, or is it kind of going in the direction that you like now?
I like that we've discussed, the nightlife and all that stuff's good. I like that there's a good emphasis on small, local business. That's great. All that stuff.
So you really wouldn't change anything?
No, no. If the things I'd want to change are kind of just more like in my relations with certain groups of people, I guess, which I've gone a long way to like kind of offer olive branches to different groups within the music scene. We're talking mostly.
What do you think of the liquor laws here? People, they're so quick to bitch about the liquor laws. Does it really bug you that much?
No, because, it did a lot when I was younger, when I drank more.
Yeah.
I like to drink still, but not to the excess I used to. But
you could still get a good beer. You could still, come on, Cutthroat here.
Cutthroat. We got our wonderful micro brews, local brews here. Squatters, UNN, Wallace. I like them all. They all have at least one or two beers I like. And basically, if you want to get drunk, you can get drunk here.
Yeah.
It's not like, they have liquor stores closed on Sunday. It's like, well, if you need to have that ready access to liquor and that's important to you, then I guess maybe living here would be kind of a drag. But you know what?
There's the deciding factor. I'm not going to move to Utah because the liquor stores are closed on Sunday.
Yeah, but you could go to a private club, and get a mixed drink,
On Sunday?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Well, they don't call them private clubs anymore. They got rid of the private club.
Oh, that was a beautiful day.
That was a beautiful day.
When
I
that
still
was
call them that. I totally just dropped that in there. Did I say private club?
I think so.
That's funny. But can you sponsor me to get into the private club?
I remember back in the day when bands would make flyers, and if they forgot to put that on the flyer,
club for members,
the whole show would have to get canceled, and it would just. I'm just like, are you?
I remember that shit. Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah, it was weird, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was and you would go to a bar, you would have to. You didn't want to buy a new membership at another bar, so you would stay where you're at.
Well, I got to the point where, like I said, when I was 20s, I drank a lot, and I go to a lot of these bars, and I got to the point where they're just like, membership. You're here, you're putting our kids through college with how much you drink.
Yeah.
Come on in, have a cold one. But it's that's a good thing they got rid of that. Man, that was so lame. Because when bands would tour, they'd be like, "What the hell is up with that? Like, you got to sponsor me to get in?" What? It's like, I thought sponsors were in AA, not to get into the bar.
Yeah. So what about eating places? Where do you like to eat? Where does LD like to enjoy eating at?
This is, and I've told you this before, is my favorite part of the podcast is the restaurants part. Pie Hole Pizza, great. Good place to go to get a cheap Pabst beer and a slice of pizza. Potato bacon pizza is awesome. I like, for breakfast, I'll do everywhere from I used to go to Big Ed's a lot. I don't go there anymore, but Blue Plate, sometimes I'll go there, but Finn's, I like Finn's.
Oh, good food.
Yeah. They got that whole Scandinavian breakfast.
Good brunch.
Yeah.
For us folks that like brunch.
Yeah, that's right. Well, that's usually when we're waking up after a late night out, so brunch is perfect. But I like Fiddler's Elbow. Fiddler's Elbow is a cool place in Sugar House. The Bohemian, that's down in Midvale, but we'll count that as part of the.
They got good beer there. Good beer.
Well, that's my favorite. It's the Bohemian Pilsner. I love Pilsner. That's my favorite beer. And yeah, those are some of the places that stand out off the top of my head. If I forget anything, I'm sorry. But yeah, there's tons of great little places. A lot of the cool, like even the little street taco thing down on 8 South. I go there and get
good burritos down there.
Yeah, burritos.
Do you hit up any of the other food trucks in town at all?
You know, I've heard there's that new one. What's it called again?
There's new ones popping up left and right. It's hard to keep up with all of them. But, I like the Submarinos, Lewis Brothers.
Right.
Off the Grid is...
See, that's good. Because I have no idea.
Chow Truck.
Chow Truck. Maybe that's
got to try the Chow Truck, man. They're like one of the original food trucks in Salt Lake, I think. I'm pretty sure.
That's cool. And, it's funny because when you go up to Portland, they do that. Like, they have these street corners where it's all just trailers. And so when I was up there playing a show...
well, Thursdays, if you go to Gallivan from 11 to 2, it's Food Truck Thursday.
Okay, cool.
So if you're in the area, stop in there. All the food trucks gather up right there, and
I'll go sample them all. I've got plenty of room to put it here. So. try the Philly cheesesteak from Submarinos, and you will be in heaven. That sounds great. Yeah, but, definitely. And I'm glad you told me about these places because I that's why I like your podcast, man, because I learned all this stuff. I mean, even here being interviewed for it, I'm learning some shit. So
well, no, and seriously, I appreciate, all the support that you've given the podcast. I mean, as a listener and your interest coming on the show.
Yeah, it's great for the city. I mean, it gives a different
different feel.
Yeah, especially for like people who are going to be listening to us outside of Salt Lake that. Like, we're going to be driving through Salt Lake, and let's just keep driving. Maybe they might say,
dude, Salt Lake City's badass, man.
It is cool. It is cool.
You got to be proud of your city.
You do. And, that's the thing. Like, I know I've a lot of my close friends who've moved away, or they're just like, fuck this place, blah, blah, blah. They always come back.
they all come back, man.
If it's not the visit, they move back,
Well, it's cheap living here.
It is, Cost of living.
Cost of living is, oh my gosh,
Yeah, and other than the crappy inversion we get, most of the time the weather's really, really tolerable. Except the winters being cold, the summers being hot. Actually, let me recant that. The weather here sucks.
It could be better. That would be one thing. That's one thing I would change about the city is the weather here.
Yeah, but you can't really change that.
Yeah.
Anyway,
it makes it what it is.
There's a lot of factors in that have nothing to do with the city. I mean, that's just like geography and and the atmosphere,
Any other events that you're looking forward to? I mean, we talked about the Metal Fest, the Esoteric Show on the 26th.
The 26th.
And what about October? Anything going on in October that you want to talk about, or?
We're none of other than that's in Denver, so that doesn't count. But for Salt Lake, let's see.
I mean, the city kind of starts to die down a little bit, so that's kind of why I want to push some events that going on October, November, even.
I'm sure there's a lot, and
you're just drawing a blank. No, that's fine.
Well, that's what's good about the aforementioned Salt Lake City metal page, because like Pirate Punks are on there, all the other Rocky Mountain Hardcore, all those guys are all
just follow that and keep up to date on.
They
all
always
of that.
post their shows up, and there's always something going on. Stuff happening.
Have you ever seen a weekend when there isn't something going on?
Pretty rare these days. No, not for the longest time, and I think that's awesome.
Yeah,
that we got to that point. Yeah.
So how can people find your band? And we're going to actually play a track here in just a second from Odium Totus, so stay tuned for that. But how can people find you online? We have a very visible Facebook page you can get on. We're also... do you guys have a website or no?
We don't. No, I don't.
That's pretty punk rock, though. Just no website.
Yeah, well, you don't really need to with the Facebook and the social media.
But what if Facebook dies? What if it disappears?
Well,
you got to have a website, man.
You got to understand, Chris. There's always something coming up the pipe, so don't worry. Someone's ready. But you could Google us and find it. We're on YouTube. We're all over. Listen to some of our noise, like we're going to be playing some. But yeah, I mean, we're kind of going on a hiatus with that band from playing live because we're getting ready to do a full length record next year.
Nice.
But we did just finish an EP. It's going to be on 7-inch vinyl, and that's coming out. That should be out, I think, like early next year.
Okay.
And if you go to our Facebook now today, I just put up a track from that. So if you want to hear even newer stuff than what's on the CD that we're going to play a track off, you can go on there.
Now this CD that we're going to be, what track do you want to play, by the way?
The last track, the CD is called Nullum Congenile, which is Latin for we seek nothing, or we don't need anything, basically. We don't need, except your it's more in a philosophical sense, but we do need your support and buy a CD if you want to.
And where can
over at Raunch Records?
Raunch Records carries a CD.
I think I can put some at Heavy Metal Shop. If I haven't, I can. But yeah, Raunch has plenty, so go there if you want to pick up a copy of that.
And go to Raunch in general.
Raunch is awesome.
Great store.
Brad's the shit. He's a good guy, and then Gavin from Invaders works over there, and you can go there and he can berate you for your music tastes. So, if you'd like to get abused that way. But what was the question? I'm bad at that.
What song are we going to play?
Victory Preda.
The last track on the CD.
The last track. And we still play that live. That's one of our favorite songs. We play it faster than what's on that CD now, so it's cool. But there's actually a YouTube video of us playing that fairly recently live that people can check out too.
And maybe I'll try to find that video and throw it up.
Yeah,
there with
put all the links for all the shows, all the stuff. We'll get that all to you, and we want everyone to get into it and really come out to the shows. And I want everyone to feel like when they come to the show, they're having fun, they're into the music. That's my goal. I mean, I wouldn't, like I said, do live shows if I didn't care about that aspect of it. Of course, I want Salt Lake to be known as a great town for metal, and I don't want it to be known just for polygamy, the LDS church, and not liquor stores closed on Sunday. We have a good subculture here, a good counterculture, and that's totally goes beyond just our metal scene. We have awesome indie rock scene, other music that I probably don't know about too.
I mean, doing this podcast, I've discovered so many. I mean, even hip hop. I don't keep up with hip hop.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like,
it's
like, wow, Salt Lake City's got a hip hop scene. That's incredible.
That is, yeah. I mean, not my bag. I mean, I liked NWA back in the day. Well, yeah, in California. Yeah. I think we talked about that before.
Yeah,
you'd hear Straight Outta Compton blaring down the street. Just living there, that was huge. But hey, more power to him, dude.
Well, it just makes Salt Lake City better.
Everything, art, crafts. I do that Craft Lake City. Is that what
Craft Lake City? Yeah. That's in August.
That just I didn't.
That just ended. But there's always even with the downtown farmers market and all that.
All that stuff's all great, and people should definitely support it.
Anyways, well, we're going to play some Odium Totus here, and thank you very much, LD, for coming on the show.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks for having me here today.
Absolutely.